the Sustainability Management Master's Program, you're answering one simple question. Do you care about your future generation? Now, if you care about your kids, their grandkids, then you care about sustainability. And a sustainability manager is someone who has the tools to make people understand how they can contribute towards developing a sustainable world. We have both part-time and full-time students. Our curriculum is 30 hours. Instead of thesis, we have a research project course and a seminar course which provides them with the kind of research background they will need to be successful in their job. At the same time, sustainability is not always everything about environment. It also relates to the business. They will take a sustainable business strategies course. They will take a project management course. Most of these courses are going to be taught by industry people, the people who are doing sustainability on a daily basis as a part of their job. Any organization that has a large number of employees and has a physical infrastructure, they will have to have a sustainability office. If you have the passion to develop and maintain a sustainable world, come to us and we will help you shape your passion into a career which will create an impact.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Dr. Carr. I was really looking forward to this. And one of the first things I was going to talk about a little bit was food waste, but with this group and looking at the boxes, I can see that's an unnecessary topic, because clearly we don't have any of that. What we're going to talk a little bit about tonight is something that I hope you get exposure to, and having talked to Dr. Carr, we've talked a little bit about the fact that you learn a lot of theory, and you're getting a lot of information given to you, which is all necessary. I'm dealing more with this tonight from when you leave these walls. Because when you leave these walls, the first thing you're going to start to do is learn. And you're going to learn in a very harsh environment where here you're protected. And we all did that, by the way. You're not alone. This is not, oh, you're young and you don't know anything. That's not the case. We're all in that same boat. And we learn every day. But what I want to get across to you tonight is that you're going to leave here, and all of you, I think, care about the environment. I assume. Is that a fair assumption? Dangerous to assume, but can I assume that you all care about the environment? How many of you care about the environment? So therefore, answer this question. True or false? Attitude equals behavior. How many think it is true? Okay. How many think it is false? How many don't think at all? Because it's late. It is false. Attitude is not a predictor of behavior. If I take any attitude study about anything about the environment, whether it's climate change, whether it's, we can use that word here, right? Only at EPA you can't use that word. Whether it's climate change, recycling, your personal behavior at home in terms of food, turning up the heat, turning down the heat, wearing a vest versus turning up the heat, your attitude will never predict your behavior with 100% certainty. Case in point. Climate change, how many of you think it's important? I would think you would, especially being in a city that has taken the brunt of a few things due to climate change. How many of you are willing to pay more for your power, for your electricity, for your gasoline, in order to combat climate change? Not every hand went up. And that is true nationally. In the latest studies done, everybody, and I use the term in quotes, the majority of people are very concerned about climate change, but that same majority doesn't want to pay any more money to make sure that it's controlled. As I was talking on the side earlier, I had a professor once who said, we are a buy me, give me, take me, send me country. Everybody wants service. Nobody wants to pay for it. Everybody wants good schools, but they don't want to pay taxes. So attitude does not equal behavior. And the minute you begin to understand that, you can be better managers of sustainability. Because you're going to walk out of here, someone's going to say to you, well, I think that's a really good idea. Yeah, it is a good idea. But they won't necessarily behave in accordance with that. So what you need to become, what we all need to become, there is no you here, it's all of us. We need to be change agents fact, the term of art is community-based social marketing. And one of the proponents of that was Dr. Moore, Doug Mackenzie Moore, out of Canada. My mother did community-based social marketing with a wooden spoon. She changed the behavior of people in our household with a spoon. And what do you think she did with that spoon? You can talk back to me, you know. This isn't a one-way conversation. What do you think she did with it? No. She did make tomato sauce, that's true. But that's not what she was doing with that spoon. Anyone? Yes, she would hit us with it. We didn't behave in the appropriate fashion that she thought was necessary. They didn't care about our attitude a whole heck of a lot. She cared about the change of behavior. Well, you can't run around hitting people with wooden spoons anymore, but you can be people who change other people's behavior. You and I were talking earlier about recycling and trying to get people to change their recycling behavior. You were saying that in Hudson County, for example, they issue you a notice, but there's no penalty attached. It's not changing behavior. It's educating, which is the first step, but there's no penalty associated for the incorrect behavior. And until that goes hand in hand, you don't do that. So what's important for you as sustainability managers is remember, your fundamental job is to change behavior so that people act in a more sustainable manner. And if you worry about whether people like you while you're doing that, don't. That's not your job. It's nice to be liked. I'm not saying go out and make enemies all day long. And often there are ways to get people to change behavior without having them be angry at you. But your goal is to change that behavior. Tonight, I want to talk a little more about different projects. We're talking a little about LEED. What's LEED? You should all be experts on that because I know one of your speakers is an expert on that. What is LEED? What does it stand for?
Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design.
Okay, what's it really mean? That's nice, that's the acronym, you're right. But what does it mean? What does LEED do?
Helps you design your structure in a way that it will be energy efficient and make sure that it's using the least of the resources and making least damage to the environment.
Good. Both energy efficiency, safety, non-polluting, recycling of materials, minimum environmental damage. Have you all heard about the triple bottom line? Right, you're familiar with that? That's the concept of LEED. And you've probably all been asked this question, but I'll ask it again anyway. A little redundancy is good for you. This building, I don't know how old it is, but you're building a new building, and you've got new buildings going up here all the time. In the next 20 years, what is the single most expensive component of this building? What will it be? What is the single most expensive operating cost in this building?
Electricity.
Nope. Good guess. Logical guess. Anyone else? Not electricity. You're also shy. You can be wrong, so what?
The people in the building?
The people in the building. 90% of the cost of a building is the cost of the salary of the people in the building. And yet we build buildings, historically, to look nice without thinking about the people. I was in one of the older buildings, and the person I was talking to had no window. They were in an inner walled room with no window. Now, why would you want to live in a cave? Because that's what that is. Every study shows that LEED or green buildings will generally increase productivity by as much as 10%. If a building costs $1 million a year in payroll, and I increase the productivity of the building's people by 10% by making the building healthier, what's the bottom line to the company or school or whomever in dollars? What's 10% of $1 million? $100,000 a year I put to the bottom line for doing nothing but making a green building. Don't be shy. You guys are way too quiet. Come on. Gotta work on this. And if you don't think that works, and I apologize for the size of this, but I think you can see it, right? PNC Bank, you're familiar with the bank, right? They did a study that found LEED certified banks, LEED certified branches, yield $461,000 more in revenue than non-LEED certified branches per employee.
Lifetime of the building?
That's a year. Oh, Now, the people at PNC Bank are not necessarily, they actually, all their branches newly built are LEED certified. They are big sponsors of green building, that's fine. I think they care about this. They're not as concerned as to the why. The why is very interesting, and you can look up the study yourself. The why is very interesting. But their concern is, would you build another bank that's not LEED certified with that information? Now you have 3 points on your triple bottom line. Socially, we know LEED buildings are helpful to the environment. Environmentally, we know they have lower impact. As far as this is concerned, the economic impact is a no-brainer. Would you agree? But in the real world, LEED is not all easy. Sometimes it's hard to do. When you get out there, anyone here studying to be a LEED GA as well? I mean, you have nothing else to do, I know, but is anyone here studying to be a LEED GA or anyone at the same time? They're here? Anyone?
I took the exam.
You are?
I took the exam.
And did you pass? Okay, good. Well, that's important. If you didn't pass, it's not as good. It's frustrating, isn't it, sometimes? And it's a hard exam, isn't it?
I don't know. I had an entire semester to prepare.
Okay. The LEED AP exam, which is, I took the old version, I thought was just cruel. A computerized exam with a clock counting down in front of you. I think that's me. No notes, no calculators. Couldn't wear a watch, couldn't wear your ring, couldn't have a wallet, nothing. Everything went in a locker. You got a blue, remember the blue, do you still use blue test books at all here? Probably not, right? Remember the old blue, anyone remember those? You must remember those. That's what you were given for scratch paper with a pencil. And that's it. You went to the bathroom, the clock kept counting. And you got your score instantaneously at the end of the exam. The longest millisecond I've ever faced in my life. But it's meant to weed out people. But here's the point in LEED. It doesn't always work. You're wondering, what is that, aren't you? Why am I showing you that picture? It's a beautiful chandelier at a building, an old bank building that was being converted to a LEED space. We got called in, and it is a beautiful chandelier, by the way. You probably couldn't build that today. Can anyone see what's wrong with that chandelier? This is a LEED certified space. You said energy efficiency, didn't you?
Yeah.
So what's wrong with that picture?
The bulbs.
What's wrong with the bulbs?
They're not any.
They're not energy efficient. These are incandescent bulbs. A client called us in and said, Wayne, the bulbs are burning out in our chandeliers, and it's costing a fortune to continuously replace them. I said, well, we didn't do this space. We didn't work. I don't know what's wrong. Well, they told me they're LEDs. You're all familiar with LED bulbs. I'll come look. Well, they're incandescent bulbs. I said, well, someone didn't do what you told them to do. And you need to change all these out, or you're going to be replacing them continuously. And they did. But if you're not watching carefully, and what this goes to is 2 points. LEED does not always work smoothly. Consultants make mistakes. All the consultants watching now, just forget I said that. And when you're spending money, you need to make sure the money is being spent where it wants to go. And so far, I've hit money 3 or 4 times in this discussion. And when you're a purist and you care about the environment, you really hate hearing people talk about money. And I get it. I get it. It shouldn't just be about the money. But if all of you aren't going to become economists, at least by avocation, not by training, and if you don't have some economics training, I am telling you from my experience, you will not be successful in this field. And trust me, I do not like economics much. I teach a course in it one day, and I use the buzzwords, and it's not my favorite thing to teach. But it's a necessary thing to learn. So I say, although my degrees are in botany, ornithology, and environmental studies, I have to know economics. You can't do sustainability without economics. You can't do it. That was a pregnant pause for a reason. I want that to sink in. What is that? It says panther. No, it's not paint. Can you see it? Not really well. It's a glue. We're working on a LEED project. LEED is very specific. Has anyone worked on a LEED project, even helped? Okay. Everything is thought about. That countertop that that can is sitting on is made from recycled bottle glass. Oh, I'm going out of range? Sorry. Recycled bottle glass and concrete. And it's made locally. That's great, right? I'm using recycled product. It's made locally. It'll last probably forever. The company used the wrong glue. The company installing the countertop. It's a LEED project. You can't use glues that are high in volatile organic compounds. You can't use glues that have formaldehyde. You can't use anything like that. It's all specified. The architects do their job very, very well. We spec'd and said, you must do it this way. And we walked in, we got complaints from a neighboring tenant. So we can't get complaints. How can we have odor complaints? We're doing a LEED certified space. The amount of work this creates in a LEED project will make you want to just throw up. Because you now have to calculate every ounce of organic compound released into the air in the project. Now, the good news is, I didn't have to do that. That's actually the more important element of this lesson. The important element is I was managing the project and said, you have to do that. Don't you think that's much more important, Doctor? I think so. But they go wrong. These things happen. And this gives you an idea of just some of the notes that are transpiring back and forth on a project when you're working with a builder, because builders have to now be taught. The biggest audience for teaching right now is getting people in construction to understand what they have to do. Because people who have done construction for 20 years don't want to hear this. No, I always did it this way. Yeah, well, that doesn't make it right. Just because you use lead in solder, lead solder was always used in pipes. We used to use lead pipes. That doesn't make it right. One of the reasons the Roman Empire fell, they believe, is because lead pipes were used to transport the water and people became stupid. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it, but lead doesn't do much for you. It's not a good metal for us. Good if there's radiation and you're behind it, but not good to eat it. And then you walk into sites and you start construction. So we plan this stuff out, right? We do LEED projects. We plan this. We have architect meetings. We're sitting with the designer. We have interior designers. We have design charrettes, which is all part of the LEED process. We go through all this. We're careful. We're down to pages of notes. And then we open a wall. In this case, there's a demolition of a site. And what do you think, just looking carefully at that picture, look very closely at it, what do you think might be wrong in there that we didn't anticipate finding? Anyone? Could be a lead pipe, but we would remove that, so that's not an issue. Someone said something.
Asbestos?
Say it?
Asbestos?
The wrapping around the pipe. This is an old building, 90 years old. Asbestos was commonly used in old buildings. Why? What was it used for?
Insulation.
And it was insulation, but it also was more important than insulation. What else? What doesn't it do?
Fire resistant.
It's fire resistant. It doesn't burn. It doesn't burn at all. In chemistry labs, when we used to take chemistry, you had asbestos-lined flame protection. Remember something great? This is what we were using. See, you're also protected. The good news is it wasn't. But the whole project stopped. We lost 3 weeks because I had to have air sampling done, I had to have testing of the materials done, and we had to confirm it was not asbestos. The point is, LEED is a wonderful thing. It does do great things. The buildings that are LEED certified are more efficient, they're cheaper to run, they save money, people are healthier, the air is better. But if you think any of this is going to go smoothly, don't. I don't want to burst any bubbles here, but it just, things are going to go wrong. You know Murphy's Law? Anyone familiar with Murphy's Law? What's Murphy's Law say?
It's like whatever will happen, or could happen, will happen, right? Something like
Absolutely. Murphy's Law says whatever can go wrong will go wrong, and the goes with that is at the worst possible moment. This is the worst possible moment in our project, because we're on a timeline. That's very tight. Losing days is not an option. Well, yeah, it is. It happens. So again, bringing dollars in this, what does that do to the cost of this project? Jacks it up, because now I've got to pay more labor to get the work done faster. The only way to do that is overtime. This particular client required union wages and union companies. So that gets very expensive very fast. But it had to be done. Nonetheless, there we go, that's how the project turned out. So from this, like I said to you downstairs, we couldn't do any worse. We had nowhere to go but up in terms of appearance. And that's the finished product. And what's nice about this product is now you have to also know materials science. Any materials chemists here? Well, you should be. Materials science is a whole big part of LEED. It's one of the areas I spend my time on a lot. I love materials. I just love dealing with different stuff. Right? So in this case, the tiles, these are actual tiles. They contain some recycled content. This is stainless steel in here. This is a high efficiency heat exchange unit. The floor in here is marmoleum. Anyone know what that is? It's modern linoleum. Okay, that's what they call it. The carpeting has recycled content. The urinal has no water. The toilets are low flush. Everything is thought about in this building. All the lighting is LED. I will not talk to a client who wants fluorescent lighting. I'll say go hire somebody else. It's a waste of money. I won't do it. These lights, this is a 10-year lease. We anticipate they'll replace the lights in 10 years. That's a pretty good deal. The chairs are ergonomic. There are no VOCs emitted from any of this. No formaldehyde emitted from anything. All the paints are zero VOC paints. That's the practical thing that can happen. Yes, sir.
So
By the way, thank you. You remind me. I want you to interrupt me. Don't have to worry about raising your hand. Call out a question. Go ahead.
Okay. So how long did the finding the asbestos push back the project?
About 2-3 weeks.
Okay. And did you have to do anything other than push back the project, or?
No. Well, we had to pay more money. And we did find other problems. There was no asbestos, was the good thing. We also found some electrical boxes in the basement. Did anyone ever see the old Frankenstein movies? Did you ever watch old horror movies? Well, that's what it looked like down there. It was those kinds of switches. They were working great, by the way, but didn't meet modern code. Those kinds of things are what you run into. Now, the good news is the structural elements of this building's never coming down. It's structurally amazing. It's the little things like that, like anything. If you didn't really have it yet, but you will. If you work on your own home, something will always go wrong. Just expect it. Any other questions on this? Yes, sir.
When you're designing to update these buildings to meet LEED certification, do you also take into account the fact that in the future, if there are maybe new updated standards or new sort of building technologies, do you design the building with future improvements in mind?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because the first few LEED buildings I worked on, we used high efficiency T8 lighting like this, which is what's in here. These are called T8 fluorescent bulbs. That's a relatively efficient bulb. And we did that because LEDs were just, we couldn't, on a cost basis, make them work. That's less than 10 years ago. Now it's the reverse. The short answer is no, because I don't know how the technology is going to change fast enough. If you told me 10 years ago that I could replace that light bulb with an LED bulb today without dismantling the fixture, I would have told you you were crazy. And today I can pop that bulb, and there's a driver in there and a ballast, and I can simply put an LED bulb in there and it'll work. 5 years ago, that was too expensive to consider. Today, you can go to Home Depot and buy it. The technology is changing too fast. What you try and do is at least keep it wired, so if you had to change things that way, the wiring could handle it. You try to design for the future, but it's hard because it's fun, but challenging and frustrating. Stuff's just changing too fast. I mean, look at laptops here. I mean, the first computer, and I'm aging myself, but my first computer I worked on in college had 12-inch floppy disks. You remember this? I mean, the floppy disk was this big. Don't laugh at me. It's because I'm old. But can you imagine that? And within 10 years, I mean, my calculator, I was given one when I went to college, was a Sperry Rand. And they could do sine, cosine, tangent. That was huge. It cost my parents over $250. Within a week, within a year, it was out of date.
Free app on your phone now that does that.
That's what I'm saying.
And more.
But at that time, that was huge. So those are things for you to keep in mind. It just changes. So yeah, you try to think of that. The good thing is, for example, the lighting, that's an easy fix. Those are modular today. That's the one thing that you can design. You can use modular lighting so it's easy to pop out and put in new technology. So yeah, that we do. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
How similar in price is it for a LEED certified building compared to
Good question.
certified?
If it's designed correctly, and you've done it the way, believe it or not, the LEED manual is a good guide. You put 90% of your effort in planning and design and 10% in construction. If you do that, it should cost you absolutely nothing more to build a LEED building per square foot than a standard building.
I know I should be saving money over time because you don't have to replace things as frequently.
That's correct. When I started doing LEED buildings, getting what we call FSC, are you familiar with FSC lumber? Forest Sustainability Council, it's certified, Stewardship Council rather, is certified lumber that is coming from a sustainable forest. That was hard to find and it had a price premium. Today you go to Home Depot and buy it. Or Lowe's. Shouldn't think I'm just Home Depot. You go to any home store and buy it. The short answer is shouldn't at all. However, if you do it incorrectly, and one of the first projects I ever worked on, the project was fully designed and the client said, oh, we want to make this LEED. I said, no, it doesn't work that way. We had to redesign the entire space. Not for square footage things, but for all of the materials. That gets expensive. So the short answer is have zero premium. The only thing that you'll pay extra for is the administrative cost of the LEED certification process. There is a cost to that. On a percentage basis, it's not even an error. It's not even a carrying error. So it doesn't cost really anything. Anyone tells you otherwise, it's full of malarkey. You give them my number, I'm happy to talk. Any other questions? Okay. Now, I know that all of this can get very frustrating. And you're all going to hopefully get hooked up with people to work with. About 3 years ago, Montclair State, my alma mater, called and said, would I take on 2 students doing an independent study in sustainability? One was going for his LEED GA. I'm like, geez, I don't know what to give them. Well, it just so happened there was a project I was working on where I said, you know what, I have something for them. I'm in a very small space in a very urban center, and the backyard and side yard are horrible. And they have water problems, and I want to make them a rain garden. I want to design a rain garden for them. Now, I could design the rain garden, but I thought it'd be a good project. I ended up with 2 students who, to their credit, had no botany background, no engineering background, no knowledge about rain gardens. We taught them about those things, gave them a few books to read, took them to some plant nurseries to talk to people who knew rain gardens. And I said, your project, to get a grade with your independent study with your professor, is to design me a rain garden. And I said, I don't want it done on CAD. If it's done on a computer, I'll tell them to fail you. I want you to hand draw the garden. Go out and buy some templates, get yourself a ruler, get some angles, do it with a pencil. I know, that's very old-fashioned thinking. But you learn a lot more when you touch things than when you do things on a screen. That is their design. 2 students who know nothing about architecture, who know nothing about landscape design, and nothing about plants. They had to not only design me the space, they had to design me a budget and pick every plant. They did it. And I say this because I want you to understand that every time something goes wrong, there are a lot of things that go right. Now, I told them that I didn't know if I could get the client to spring for this. This is not. It's very tiny in space, but expensive per square foot because everything had to be done by hand. Couldn't get equipment in there. In the end, this is what it looked like. This is what it looks like today. The client went for it. Now that's not bad looking compared to that. All right, which would you rather be in? On top of that, they fixed, this was all the way out to the street, this pitch goes to the building, which is never good for water, by the way. You don't want water running to a building. And we were getting flooding throughout this entire area. So in this design, this is all permeable pavers with underground French drains leading to a rain garden. All the water from this alleyway here, and from here goes underground into a cistern full of stone to feed. These are all native plants to New Jersey, all of which are drought tolerant and water tolerant. They'll take extremes. The old fencing here, as you can see, was less than attractive. Would you agree? Towards a sustainability model, we used all the material called Trex. You've probably seen it or heard of it. They do make fencing. It's not as common, but we found it. This is all Trex fencing. Now that means two things. One, it's staying there, I don't know when it'll fall. It's going to be a very long time. Theoretically, it's recyclable at the end of its life. And the end result is, based on Trex's calculation, that little bit of fencing used 100,000 bags to make the fencing. We knocked out 10 barrels of oil and kept 1,200 pounds of plastic out of a landfill. What's my point? This wasn't done by a professional landscape architect. It was done by undergraduate students. So I expect that all of you will do projects at least twice as effective as this. Is that a fair challenge?
Undergraduates are often better than
These are I throw that down as a gauntlet to you. Because I know you're going to tell me how busy you are. I know, because we've all been there. As I joked with you earlier, I paid my dues. I did this already. We went through this pain already. But you have an opportunity to do something. I'm going to tell you, my two students that did this, neither one of them ended up going into the sustainability field. They all chose to do something different in the end. But they were so thrilled when I called them and said, this is being built. And then they came to see it. They just couldn't believe it. That's exactly what they designed. This is not, I changed nothing. No, I take that back. I added these blue stone pieces because, remember I said in the field, everything can go wrong. I think with Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. It's a commercial property. Any soil that I dug, I couldn't take off the property or else I'd have to have it tested. Now I know it's not contaminated. This was a private home. There was no oil tank. But it didn't matter. I said, you can't do it. It'll cost too much. All right, I'm going to use it here. We'll just make a raised bed. It can sit against the Trex fence because Trex isn't going to rot if it gets wet. And the one thing I did add, which is not in this picture, is we added some native grass, clump grass called little blue stem up on top, which will just soften the fence that much more easily. You can do anything. Yes.
Why did you have to put the soil up on the side?
Because I had to dig down here to remove soil in order to create the drainage basin for the rain garden.
Yep.
And that means I had to move a lot of soil.
Yeah.
Well, that's how much soil I had to move.
Okay.
And so the only thing I could come up with in my head to not truck it off was figure out a way to use it. And that was what we did. We just created a raised bed. Be adaptable is my other point here. Don't just go by what it says you have to do. Think outside the box. Don't be afraid to do that. I had to go to the client for more money, by the way. This was not in the budget. It wasn't much money. But I said, look, you're in for a penny. You're in for a pound. You might as well go for the whole thing. And they did. And by the way, the staff, the last time I went to check on this site that works in that office, they were sitting out in the chairs at lunch break. You know what? That made me feel better than virtually anything else on this project I could have hoped for. That no one was sitting here when it looked like this. Nobody wanted to sit outside. And we had butterflies and bees in the flowers. I was very happy. Little things. You're going to learn about that. Make you a lot happier. So the other question then becomes, let's talk a little bit about the other things in environment. You're all recycling fanatics, right? Not one of you raised your hand.
have to ask them everything.
I mean, I swear I'm taking them downstairs to go through the dumpsters. Can we do that after class?
Yeah,
I'll fix it. I looked at your recycling can before. It's an occupational hazard. There's a banana peel. Seriously? Does it say anywhere on the can put banana peels in it? Now, I'm sorry. You're the cream of the crop.
They should not be eating bananas. Is that your point?
No. It should be in a cream pie if you're going to bother with a banana. Or on a banana float would be nice, right? A little banana sundae. Seriously.
Because the trash is...
It's too far away.
Yeah. They didn't want to do that.
Yeah. Do you even know what you can recycle on this campus? It's on your website. I looked before I came to see if you had any instructions put here. Tell me 3 things you can recycle on this campus. I want a paper from every one of them for you. You're going to hate me by the time we're done. You can't name 3 things you can recycle? Paper? No. Cups? Where's food recycling here?
Plastic bottles.
Plastic bottles? What kind of plastic bottles? Can I recycle that reusable one in the back? That green, like limey green color thing?
Nope.
No, that's a number 7. That's a polycarbonate bottle. You can't recycle that easily. Okay, so by the time next week rolls around, you should know everything that can and can't be recycled. But I look in every can coming into this building. I know, I said occupational hazard. And I went down, and you'll vouch for the fact I purposely made a side trip going to your office to look in the dumpsters. You have to have hobbies. There's nothing wrong with a hobby. Mine's a little warped, but nonetheless productive.
Well, in
The
some, sorry for interrupting.
No, I want you to. Go ahead.
Okay, great. In some buildings, we don't even have recycling cans, so you can be.
So carry it to your next location. Isn't it emptier when isn't it lighter when it's empty? You carried it in full.
I've also noticed, like, kind of going in the same vein, that sometimes there are no recycling cans on campus, and other times there are only recycling cans.
Ah, both problems.
Like
by
on
the
the
way.
I know the second floor of the library. Today I went to throw out a wrapper for a bar that I had, and there were 3, 4, 5 recycling cans, but no garbage cans anywhere. So I threw it out somewhere else. But I just noticed that. I feel like there should be one right next to the other. It makes it so much easier.
Well, see that you just passed the first course in community-based social marketing. The first thing people would tell you a hurdle to recycling will be is not having the cans clearly labeled or right next to each other. So you've got to correct. You're absolutely correct. So there aren't. I know what I'm hearing here is Stevens is at fault as a university because they don't have. You are they. You are Stevens University. Institute, sorry. You are Stevens. So, why can't you affect change? Why can't you change that?
It's easier said than done.
Yeah, exactly, because we like to complain. That's our hobby.
We do it so well. Remember, buy me, give me, take me, send me. If you can't fix it, guess what? No one else can. And I'm going to tell you that I know you can do it, and here's why. I was in a town in southern Jersey. They called me in to look at a high school. Looked at the high school, met with 3 students, seniors, who were the officers of the environmental or conservation club, whatever they called it. Sat with their advisor and the head of facilities for the building. They said, we don't want to use disposable styrofoam anymore in our cafeteria, but the school won't let us stop. So, well, let's look and see what we have. They had an old dishwasher system in place that worked, just wasn't used. They said, help us change it. So I can't do anything. I'm an outsider. Do your homework. I'll help you get the sources. I'll get you the information you need to do it. Make a presentation. Show that it's economically feasible to go to reusable serviceware, and then make a pitch to your Board of Education. I said, if you're all willing to do that, the worst that can happen is they'll say no. By the end of the school year, they had done away with styrofoam. Because they showed the economics, working with their teachers, they showed the environmental benefit, and the school did away with disposable styrofoam. 3 students, 3 seniors, changed an entire purchasing policy of a school district. Morristown. So you can do it. So I'll expect that next time I visit the campus, we're meeting again in the break, right? Whenever that is, we're going to get together and you will have fixed the recycling program.
No, I don't see that now.
Well, see, then it won't happen. Then I guarantee you it won't happen.
No, it's a realistic expectation, actually.
Why? I just had to tell you 3 high school students changed the purchasing policy in 3 months.
Well, there are students here changing things, and then some people, take the situation back to as it used to be. So.
Well, can you change your behavior on it?
Well, if I become an annoying person, then you actually face more resistance because you have to deal with people that are professors and have,
No, I'm not asking you to change anybody else. I'm asking you to change your behavior. Are you going to do recycling correctly from here on out?
I'm recycling correctly.
Good.
I do my part, but that's.
Then get one other person to change, and I'll consider that a success. 1. Just 1.
It is a possibility. Actually, like they just started a sustainability students organization.
They did.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that can be a good conduit. Josh, did you attend the meeting today?
Yeah, it was great.
So again, so they have a representative in the sustainability committee. We do not have an office of sustainability here. The de facto authority here is the sustainability committee. I am a part of that. Josh is the chair of the president of this new organization. He's a part of that. So again, if you can bring those things to his attention, he can bring these things to the attention of that group, and then something may be done.
Yeah,
Not everything will be done.
They care. They want to make change, but it's us. We have to push for it.
And you've also hit the nail on the head as well. The function in changing behavior is knowing what's impeding the behavior you want people to engage in. First, you must identify the barrier to the behavior you want. When you identify that barrier, you can start to break down that barrier. And you've hit some of them. There aren't the proper recycling containers in the right locations. Things aren't properly marked. Even though there's a website that says what you can and can't recycle at this institute, none of you raise your hand to give me answers other than paper. And that's not a fault. It's just you've identified a barrier. If people don't know how to recycle properly, they won't do it. Because they're afraid of making the mistake. So that's your challenge. But it can be fixed. And here's an example, by the way, of a challenge. This is a recycling center. We had to audit every truck being dumped on the recycling center floor. We had to go through every load looking for things that were improper. Let me tell you, we did this in the hot weather in the summer. I'm used to doing this. I was working with a few new people who were there that worked for the county involved. The worst thing is when you get a load containing diapers. Because there's nothing worse than a load of diapers for 2 weeks in a truck getting dumped on the floor. Would anyone disagree with that? The only worse than that would be dog poop in a truck for 2 weeks on the floor.
They're way too young to have kids.
I'll take them somewhere. You can take them to a sewage treatment plant and figure out, fix it good. This is supposed to be single stream, meaning cans, bottles, and paper together, which is, by the way, what your program is. The program doesn't accept hangers. The program doesn't take plastic bags or plastic, and it had all of those things in it. Yet this is one of the better programs in the state. They spend a lot on education, and it is better. I will tell you that that program has about a 7% contamination rate. That's not bad. Not great, but it's better than 15. You can change it. So I'm going to give you a challenge right now. How many of you ever buy eggs? Ever? Which of these 3 containers do you buy your eggs in?
Whatever's cheapest.
Whatever's cheapest. There's what I like to hear. You buy them in cardboard or paperboard? How many buy them in this container? The styrofoam. Anyone? You'll get cheaper eggs typically in this. None of you buy eggs in styrofoam. Well, good for you. Because that's the one I can't recycle. The other 2 I could. This one I can't. So see that? You are making a change. Because I almost never get a group where at least one person doesn't raise their hand. So you're already on the right path. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. We talk about energy savings, and you all turn out lights when you leave the room, right? No one ever leaves a light on. Never.
Not once.
Not ever. Not one time in your whole life. The easiest thing in the world, I love that sign, but I think you should put that on every light switch. We glow in the dark pink. Of course, what we do, what's one of the ways I can overcome human behavior with light switches? Anyone?
Make it automated. Automated.
Automated. Do I want to use motion sensors or infrared motion sensors? You want infrared/motion. You can't just use motion because what happens? You're sitting still at the desk, the light will go off, people get annoyed, and they'll bypass the system. Infrared's better because the only time it won't turn the lights off, the only time it will turn the lights off is if you're dead for more than 20 minutes. But that's good because then you can find the person who's dead in the building. Thermostats. No one turns up a thermostat, right? You just get the vest.
I don't have control over the thermostat.
We know that's the easiest way to control costs. We know it saves a lot of greenhouse gas emissions, reduces them. We know it cuts costs all the way down the line. And people turn up the thermostat because they don't want to get a sweater. And let me tell you, there's another part of Murphy's Law that says nothing is foolproof because fools are so ingenious. We did a project for a warehouse, and we thought we were being brilliant. My engineers in particular thought they were being brilliant. We took in this warehouse all the space heaters out. They were trying to heat a 30,000 square foot building with 20-foot ceilings. Heating the air is inefficient. So we put infrared heaters in place, radiant heaters. Are you familiar with radiant heaters? Basically, if you're in the cone of the radiation, you feel warm. But we don't worry about heating the air. And we put a set thermostat in. You couldn't adjust it, because we knew what you needed in a warehouse. We got a complaint from the client saying the heat's too high in here. Well, it can't be too high. The thermostat's set. It's locked. You can't even take a key. You can't open it. Murphy's Law. Somebody was cold, so they went to the first aid kit. Took the chemical ice packs, cracked them, and put them around the thermostat. Which, of course, is now saying it's really cold in here. I got to pump up the heat because it doesn't know. It was the most brilliant bypass I've ever seen. Of course, if you got hurt, there were no ice packs in the first aid kit, but you were warm. You have to anticipate every little thought process. Got it. Carpooling. So now we're going to do the last 5 minutes here. I'm going to talk about legislation. This is how a bill becomes law in New Jersey. Have you all had this in school already somewhere? You all know the process of a bill becoming law? Same as in the United States. Same as in Congress. New Jersey is basically a mini Congress. These are all the steps. Introduce, draft, give it to someone to look at, go through, give it to committee, move it forward, make amendments, make comments. If it passes committee, send it to the second committee if necessary, then pass both houses, send it to the governor, who can say yes, no, or maybe. Then you can override the governor if you have enough votes. Many people say this is the way a bill becomes law. That's the jaded approach. Does it have an impact? Anyone who tells you otherwise is not telling you the truth. It most certainly does. Lyndon Johnson, when he was president of the Senate, in way ancient history, it was legal to give money in cash to legislators at that time. And he would have $50,000 to give a legislator for his race to get their vote. But it was legal then. It's not now. Not really how it works. The process does work. This is an example of a bill. An example of a bill pertaining to recycling of solar panels that was just introduced in the legislature. I only put it up there because you think, hey, solar, right? It's great, everybody has solar. But what do you do with the solar panels when they break apart? There's no program in place. They go to landfills. No one designs for recycling in products. They don't design for that end use. If you've read the book Cradle to Cradle, anyone ever seen that book? Right? And who's read it? I suggest you might enjoy reading it. I don't agree with all of it, but it's worth reading. It's called Cradle to Cradle. We don't think of that. Solar panels must be good, right? Because it's solar power. Well, they contain rare earths, gold, platinum, silicon. That bill is going to become law at some point, in my opinion. What did I do here? There we But to give you an idea how this process works, look at the date on the top of that bill. Can anyone read that? Got young eyes, you should be able to read that. January 3rd, 2008. That is when a bill on the recycling of electronics, mandatory recycling of electronics, putting extended producer responsibility, you're familiar with that, where the manufacturer is responsible for what they make? That's when that bill started. It passed in 2010. In 2016, it took us 6 years to get a new bill introduced to try to fix the flaws of the old bill. 6 years. We got the bill through the legislature. The governor pocket vetoed it. Essentially what that means, if you're not familiar with your civics, means at the end of the legislative session, if he takes no action, the bill dies. The senator, who was the chairman of the committee and is still the chairman, is a very good senator, Bob Smith, reintroduced the bill in the new session. We worked very hard on it. And by the way, the electronics industry wanted this bill to fail in the worst possible way. They did everything they could. They hired tons of lobbyists. And here's my point. We didn't have tons of lobbyists. We had low paid and a lot of volunteers, all of whom knew the process. We know the legislative process. That's my point. Know the process. The governor, and I have to tell you, I'm shocked, signed the bill in 2017, and it became a law. It took from 2008 to 2017 to get these bills through in a way that we think the law will work better now. And it goes to your question of earlier, do we design going forward in terms of how things are going to be? No one could have anticipated in 2008, when this law was first written to recycle electronics, that people wouldn't use cathode ray tubes in televisions. When was the last time anyone saw a big fat television? Between 2008 and today, there are no manufacturers of those tubes anywhere in the world that I know of. Well, what do you do with the old tubes? It changed the economics of the entire process. So in sum, sustainability is a wonderful thing. Obviously, I do it for a living. I've turned it into my business for the last 22 years. You have the opportunity. You're going to have training. We didn't have it. It didn't exist. There was nothing to train us. we learned it by doing and protesting and doing all the silly stuff. It was fun, though. You are going to have the technical skills. Just don't forget the practical skills. Any questions?